Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Messi and Co. Uh, Post game live stream match reaction. A stream we probably didn't want to do, or not the stream we didn't want to do. Maybe a result we didn't want to have to talk about. Um, I'm Ashley. This is my co-host Gian. We will give people a couple minutes to join, but Inter Miami lose game 2 at Atlanta 2-1 with the 93rd minute, I think, goal by Atlanta to put them ahead in what was a very up and down match. Series is now tied 1-1, going back to South Florida for game 3. Gian, hi, how are you? First and foremost.
Outside of soccer, I'm okay. Inside of soccer, I'm very stressed out, very bothered.
Very stressed out.
But weirdly enough, and you and I spoke about this for like a quick second before we went live. Like weirdly enough, like I have a peace because it felt like this was gonna happen. Like
From minute one, not minute one. That's being dramatic. From about minute 7, I was like, they do not have the same confidence and the same energy, speed, all those things that they had in game 1. Could be a couple different reasons why. We'll get into those shortly. But yeah, couple of different. Yeah, you
look,
go first.
like I'm looking at this game, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that want to blame Tata Martino, right? There's a lot of people that are gonna want to blame him. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like I'm not blaming Tata in this game personally.
I'm
Like
not
I'm looking
either.
at this game, and it's you as a coach can only do so much, but the rest is on the players, and the players just didn't show up today. For me, like I think that like the defense really wasn't an issue, but when it comes to the offense, like there have been times throughout this season where we've seen this offense struggle, and it's weird when you've got Suarez scoring the amount of goals that he's scoring, when you've got Messi on the pitch scoring the amount of goals he's scoring, assisting the amount of times he assists. You got Diego Gomez who's going to Premier League that is really good. I don't know, like it's just weird that this team sometimes goes through these points where they just can't score. And the only reason they scored today was
Yeah,
because of an insanely gross error by Gusan that probably shouldn't have
crazy.
happened. But other than that, this team probably wouldn't have scored at all. And to me, it's like, okay, they generated opportunities. They did the same in Miami. They were able to generate opportunities. They had what was
Yeah.
like an all-star performance by Gusan that had 8 saves. Okay, now you're thinking, okay, going into this game in Atlanta, yeah, there's no shot that Gusan is gonna play like an all like freaking like Oliver Kahn, like that's not gonna happen again.
Or like Thibaut Courtois
Yeah,
in a Champions
exactly.
League final. Yeah.
You're like, as long as this team just does what they did in game 1, they're able to generate those chances and not, they should win this game fairly easily. But this team is like, they had opportunities, but I think when it comes to the final third, they
Yeah.
just weren't accurate. They weren't finished.
Ruthless.
Like
Yeah.
that first one, for example, which I thought was an amazing play with Chelo Weigand right at the beginning of the game. He takes the ball down the right wing and he puts in a beautiful crossing ball into Alba, who's cutting into the area. Like I think you must have missed that by a millimeter. Then I felt like there was another play down the line that we were just kept missing by like a millimeter. Just the passes weren't there to get the goals in at the end. But for me, again, it's just the guys on the actual field, the guys that are supposed to be scoring, they're just not getting the job done. And that's kind of how I can summarize this night. There's other things we can get into in tactics and that sort of thing, but I think that set this team up to be successful. The guys on the pitch just didn't do their job.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with maybe what is the guys on the pitch, because first and foremost, Sergio Busquets did not play and did not travel with the team. Clearly, his illness was severe enough that he couldn't join. However, I would say it's twofold. One, I think missing his leadership, his steadiness, the composure, the ability to create opportunity was missed. But shout out to Noah Allen, because Noah Allen had an absolutely, in my opinion, phenomenal game and was man of the match, because
Yeah.
he had to slot in as a central defender in a back three and played his socks off. He, recovered all the runs. He did not give Atlanta really any opportunities to score, capitalize on him being in the game, and he did well. And so I don't blame it on him, or just like what was that, I guess, substitutionary game plan. I think he did as good of a job as you could ask to replace Busquets. Point two, at halftime, Inter Miami had to make a substitution, which was taking off Yannick Bright for Benjamin Kramaski. And, in the beginning, first few minutes, like maybe everyone was thinking it was a tactical change. Surprised me. I know you listen to the Spanish broadcast. I listen to the English broadcast. And so Taylor Twellman was, saying that they weren't sure, what they thought it was a tactical switch to try and create more offense. But then it came out maybe like 15 minutes in or 10 minutes after it was a hamstring injury. And, I don't think Kremaski played bad by any means, but I think the Inter Miami midfield definitely took a hit with having to make that change so early, and the balance of the team was off. Atlanta was able to take over the midfield and create a lot of chances. And with the format that Tata had the team playing on and the way it was constructed, now you're having your two most defensive minded, quote unquote, midfielders or players out in Busquets and Bright, right? With 45 minutes to play. And you're having to bring on a young Noah Allen, who, like I said, did a great job, and Kremaski having to play what was, probably not exactly where he's normally thinking he has to play. The midfield took a hit from it. And yeah, I think it wasn't a Tata issue. It was just the team couldn't figure it out. And with that, I think it's important that we talk about, obviously the namesake of this podcast and the most important player for Inter Miami, which is Lionel Messi. I think compared to, last game and probably the last couple games, wasn't his most ferocious, fiery performance. Part of that could have been just how Atlanta was set up tactically. Part of it, I think there was honestly, like, gun to my head, I think there's just him and Suarez and just a few others are just playing, like, even if it's just 2% slower because they're afraid of the turf. Like, even if no one says it, and, maybe they'll never say they would, and maybe in the moment you don't think it, but it just seemed like the team was just going a little bit slower. And you have to think part of it subconsciously that you're playing on this artificial turf and you do not want a serious injury. But yeah, him and Suarez obviously did not have the impact that they had in game one. Lots of different questions maybe brought up, but now it's, a game three. So what are you
Yeah, I
thinking?
mean that could definitely be an issue with the grass. I mean, it's not out of the question. I think that players, especially at their age, are trying to take care of themselves. They're cognizant of the fact that those types of fields are typically can become issues as far as injuries are concerned. But I want to. I do want to go back to one thing that you were mentioning, especially going into that second half and having Yannick Bright step out and having Kremaski come on in, and then you had guys like Matias Rojas come in and that sort of thing. Look, I don't think that defense was really an issue tonight at all. I think that when I'm looking at this team and kind of, I was talking to my wife who was also watching the game with me, and I promise you, this may sound like I'm making this up, but we got scored on minute 58 and minute 57. And this is maybe where we can put some responsibility on Tata. But again, the responsibility, the majority, it goes to the players because they were off. But here's where I can maybe put some responsibility. Minute 57, right before we get scored on, I literally told Anna, look, they're playing a low block. They're not pressuring high up anymore. They're allowing Atlanta a lot of possession. Atlanta's having the ball. They can't do this. And I told Anna, this game isn't over. It's 1-0. All they have to do is tie, and we go to penalties. And as soon as I said that, we got scored on. And she's like, "You jinxed it."
We all
I'm like,
felt it. Like, I felt it too,
it's just, but you saw how the tide turned
immensely.
in the 50s, where Miami was just not being as aggressive in marking as like they were. The three in the midfield, which were at that time Kremaski, Redondo, and Gomez, were basically sitting almost like on par with the back five. Like they were just allowing Atlanta to have that ball, build out perfectly, touch the ball right in front of, on our side of the midfield. Like I've seen that before. I've seen Tata make that, what I think is a mistake, and it just ended up happening like that. That last goal in minute 94, like, I mean,
The game
it's
was so
soccer.
open at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's soccer. Every team is going to get a chance. To me, I look at that and, okay, maybe you can blame it on one player now, but it's part of the game. To me, I don't want to look at that one moment and 1 minute before the game ends. Like, what lost the game was the first 90 minutes, not that goal in the 94th minute. I think that really this team and the players just didn't show up, and going to that last, what you were talking about Messi and how he played. I don't know. It's just Messi
Yeah.
missed, I think, a couple of maybe shots that he would typically make. I think that uh,
Gomez missed that golden opportunity from an
that
elbow ball.
Gomez missed that. I also think that there were some times where maybe they relied too much on Messi, and I think we've spoken about this before as well, where maybe there are better options for a pass. They'll pass the ball and just to Messi, even though maybe he's not in the best position to make a pass. So, but I can't fault it on any one player. Again, not going to fault it on Messi. Uh,
No.
but I think that now we look at this going back into Atlanta. I mean, sorry, back in Miami at Chase Stadium, and it's like, you guys, they need to score. They need to score. To me, that's the biggest thing. I'm not afraid of the defense. I'm not afraid. They need to score. They need to figure out a way to get back to their scoring habits at Chase Stadium. If not, this is going to get scary when we go back home.
Cursed dolphin kit. That hurts because it's so pretty. It's
It's
such a
the
pretty
prettiest
kit.
kid. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think no, you definitely can't just you wouldn't put the blame on Messi. He had to keep dropping back a little bit because the creativity wasn't there, and so you can only ask so much of him for sure. Could he have maybe put that ball more on target towards the end of the game that you would expect him to? Yeah, you could, but it's not a Messi, it's not a Suarez, it's not an Alba, it's not a one person show. I thought this was an interesting comment, and I do think I want to talk about it a little bit. Like we said, I really do not put the blame on Tata because two of the players that would most certainly not have come out of the game or not played in the game is Busquets and Bright. They would have both been in the game till the very end. Maybe Bright comes off in the 80 something minute. And that definitely changes because look what happened in game one. It was a totally different balance of the team. The defense felt strong, the midfield felt strong. A lot of creation was going to happen because those are just the way those two players play. Tata didn't have a choice in losing them, and he only has so many defensive options, right? With the injuries we've had and defensive midfield options, you have creative players available. You have Kremaski, you have Gressel, you have Robert Taylor, Campana, etc., Rojas. Those are all forward players, right? And knowing that you have Messi and Suarez who are not going anywhere, you can only do so much with changing the forward players so early in the game and keep removing defensive players, right? You need to bring in as more enough to keep the defense strong. I think Diego Gomez should have come out earlier, and I think Matias Rojas deserves to come in before the 78th minute in this game and the 82nd minute in the first game. I think he is a strong creative player, and although towards the end of the season maybe he wasn't as strong as he was in the beginning, I think with the way the team is set up now, if Diego Gomez is struggling or the spaces aren't opening up for him, you can bring in Rojas earlier, and you could even bring in a Gressel or a Robert Taylor. I think Matias Rojas is higher in the pecking order than Robert Taylor and Julian Gressel for this type of format, but I think those subs could have been made earlier to try and spark the creativity a little bit more. I think part of what Inter Miami and Tata are thinking is we on our worst comes to worst, which is what ended up happening, but worst comes to worst, we lose this game, but we go back to Chase Stadium and we cut our losses and we hopefully don't have any more injuries and we cut our losses and we replan. Hopefully Busquets is back. Hopefully it's not a long-term injury for Yannick Bright. But that was, I think, their worst case scenario, and it ended up happening. I think we were all thinking, including me, I was ready. I'll admit I had the tweet ready on the Messi and Co platform going to penalties. Like, get ready to tune in. And they let it slip in that last minute and a half. And so, what will we be thinking now? I don't know. But I would have I think those players deserve a little bit longer of a chance to make a creative impact, knowing you're not getting rid of Messi and Suarez, they're not coming out, but you can I think you can give other creative players a chance to come in earlier.
Yeah, agreed. I like, well, Matias Rojas, obviously he brings a bit of I think like dynamic a
South
dynamic
American
change.
flair.
Like, and this the fact that when you're having trouble scoring, right, you need to find different ways to score. And one of the things that he brings that maybe you've gotten from like Jordi Alba last game and that sort of thing is somebody else that kicks from outside the box.
Yeah.
And he's really good at it. We've seen him score beautiful goals from outside the box. And I think that
Multiple.
it would have definitely been nice to have more time to give him an opportunity to do something like that. And again, the creativity to what was commented on that question, or said on that question rather. I think that, yeah, when you need a bit more of playmaking, we've always said that when Messi was going to leave for Copa America, that the person that was going to slot in for him was going to be Matias Rojas because of his playmaking. So yeah, we would have definitely liked to have more playing time with him, but I don't know. At the end of the
It felt like
day,
a cursed game, didn't it?
yeah, and also when I'm looking at like the final stat lines on here, like it just, I think that Inter Miami just gave Atlanta too much life. They, again, just dropping the pressure on them and just playing a bit of a lower block. When you look at like the stats and the shots last game, Inter Miami had so many more shots on target and shots on goal than Atlanta had. And now we're looking at the stats, and Atlanta actually had more shots this time around. They had 13 to Miami's 10. They had 4 shots on goal to Miami's 2. Like, that's very telling right there. Okay, yeah, maybe Miami had the more possession, 55 to 44, but the story to me is right there. Atlanta had more shots and more shots on goal than Miami this time around. And that's all on Miami and their lack of, again, and I think that most of that came in the second half. As soon
Yeah.
as, yes, maybe make coincidentally when Bright came out, but it's just, I think, from a strategic standpoint too. Again, that's the Tata part. Okay, that's the Tata part. He had that team just played two back, and I think that hopefully that's a learning lesson for Game 3. They need to make sure that they come in with the pressure. And one of the things I want to see in Game 3 different from now is I want to see, I think, just more aggression. I want to see them take not a one goal lead. To me, in these types of games in playoffs, when you're playing, even if you're playing an 8 seed, like that doesn't matter. These are like the playoffs are different. They're
Yeah.
completely different. It's not the same as the regular season. A one goal lead is not sufficient for you to sit back and be like, okay, we're comfortable. Let's hold on to this lead, or yeah, we're gonna be okay, and simply, and you can let your guard down. No, like these are the playoffs. You need to get one goal. You need to get 2 goals. You need to make sure that you cement that cushion. So to me, I think again, Inter Miami went in there with that 1-0 at halftime, and even though it was to me uh, uh, a lucky 1-0. It should have gone. It should have been 0-0. But that lucky 1-0, and they just went way too comfortable, especially with Bright coming out and just gave Atlanta all the life, playing in front of all those fans, playing at their home field. Like, yeah, that's a big mistake. But I really do expect this team to look different in Game 3. I really think that they're not gonna like. This team knows how to win. This team is a team that can score 3, 4, 5 goals a game, and I think that hopefully we'll see that team in Game 3. I'm just disappointed, and again, it's weird because usually on these games that are such a letdown, like you can pinpoint. You're like, man, this guy played terrible, man,
Yeah.
or or man, what the heck is Tata doing? Like, no, it was just collectively a bad performance, and that's really all you can say. There's no finger pointing, I think, on this one.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I would say I think that, you know, it was collectively like instead of, getting that 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, it felt more like, I don't know, like a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, where if Inter
Yeah,
Miami won the
lackluster.
game, you wouldn't be surprised. You still being, okay, they're the better team. They had, better chances, etc. They figured out how to hold it. But them losing also isn't a surprise, right? Like it's kind of just like something that hung in the balance.
Look,
And
if Miami would have won this 1-0, if they would have won 1-0 and we're going to semifinals, I'm worried. Like regardless, I'm worried. I wouldn't have been happy with the performance. I wouldn't have been celebrating
yeah, it's not
the
it's
like,
not
oh,
roses. Yeah.
I would have genuinely had concern for this team if they would have won this game 1-0. And I would have said we're not ready to go to the semifinals in this shape because we're gonna get ran out of the house.
Yeah.
Like you need to get better regardless. So at the end of the day, learning experience hopefully for this team that they need to be better. Learning experience with that they needs to figure out a way to make this team better. And regardless of the result, they would have had to get better anyways. But at least you're ending this at home. This is the reason why you won Supporters Shield. This is the reason why you did so good in the regular season and you got that number 1 seed. For instances like this, where if you're going to game 3, you're defining your next step to the semifinals at home, and that's what you want. You want to do it in front of your home crowd. So I'd rather have this than be Atlanta having to go into Chase Stadium right now. So at least if we're looking at it, the glass half full, I guess at least it's at home.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, that's kind of like, well, that's why we're in this playoff format, right? That's why you have these best of 3 series, is so you have these kind of moments and games, and home field advantage becomes a big factor. Here's a question. Do you think that the team is going to move to a back 4, or do you think that the plan honestly is going to be um with Busquets, you're hoping is back by next Saturday? Bright, maybe not, but if Bright's not back, then I think you'll see Noah Allen starting again as center back, and you'll see Busquets play in what was Yannick Bright's role, right? Like I don't think you're going to see a 4-3-3. Do you think there should be? Do you think this needs to change? Because like, remember what we said last Saturday? Like, yeah, things change game to game, but last Saturday we're praising the tactics. We said, yeah, we're not usually great in the back 3 or the 5-2-3, but Inter Miami were perfectly matched up with Atlanta last game, had total control of the chances, felt balanced, all of those things.
Well, I
Personnel
mean,
changes, does that mean formation changes?
no, well, I mean, it's because it's not really a back 5; it's a back 3. It's
Yeah.
3, and you basically, and the reason it works so well to generate chances, and more so in game 1, is because of the fact that you basically had Jordi Alba and Chelo as wingers. They were
Yeah.
playing very high up, and that also helped in controlling a guy like Saba, who basically had to play in a back 5 for Atlanta and had to cover Jordi Alba the entire time, which really negated him being able to be a large part of Atlanta's offense, which helped us out a lot. So to me, like, yeah, that it was a back 3, it worked out. But what ends up happening with that is, obviously, if you're going to have a back 3, typically Alba and Chelo are guys that usually play defense. In this case, they're being used as wingers. But what you're really doing is you're taking out somebody that is more offensive, which is what you're really doing. But in this case, yeah, you had Busquets in the back 3 in game 1. Now you have Noah Allen. I really think that you want to have Busquets in that midfield. And
Right.
and more so than anything, it's not even the defense. For me, Busquets in the midfield is not the defense, because I think you looked very well defensively in the midfield. I don't think that was an issue. I think Yannick Bright is insanely good in the midfield, and we also know that Tata Martino says that he's not going to play Busquets and Yannick Bright in the midfield together. It's the only reason why he had Busquets go into the defense. He doesn't like to play 2 defensive mids. That's just not the way he plays.
Yeah.
So you got to think to yourself, do you want Busquets in the midfield? If you do, you're not going to get Yannick Bright. And to me, the upside is you get that playmaking in the midfield. You get that perfect pivot as soon as you regain control, where you have Busquets being able to touch and create and that sort of thing, which he's so good at. He's so good at. And you don't
It's one of
necessarily
the
have
best
that
ever.
when yeah, and you don't necessarily have that when he's playing at the center back role. So it's a give and take, but if you're asking me, I would love to have him back in the midfield. I think is very much necessary, especially in games like this. Like if he would have been in this game, it probably maybe would have looked a little bit different in regards to the playmaking. It would have been a lot cleaner. But yeah, back four for me, it's always been my thing. I know, the entire season when we've talked about these things, I'm not a fan of what Miami looks like when they have three center backs. But
Yeah.
yeah, back four for me, and get that playmaking from Busquets in the midfield. I'd love to see that.
But do we trust, Tomas Aviles as being able, because it's really funny. It's interesting with with how soccer works and how formations works, because you think in theory going from a back four to back three means that your center backs are going to be more exposed and more room for error. And while that's true, I think for someone like Tomas Aviles, being in a back four actually like highlights his shortcomings and is what you see where he gets those yellow cards and where he doesn't know if he should be up more or back more, maybe sometimes oversteps, miscalculates, gets those early yellow cards, makes those mistakes. He got a yellow card today. He got beat on a one-on-one, had to take the yellow. It is what it is. But you have to start factoring those things in, right? Like, what does your back four look like then? I mean, I think it's obviously going to be, it would be Wegat, it would be Aviles, Martinez, and then Jordi Alba. But then you're getting rid of Noah Allen, and Noah Allen was, like I said earlier, the best player on the pitch tonight. And so now you're taking him out of the equation. So I think it will be really interesting
I
think it will be really, really interesting to
Yeah.
see what he does tactically.
Well, I think the fear is that if you do that and you just have a back four and you're staying with two center backs, I think the fear in that is you have Diare up front, you have Sava, you have
Yeah.
Miranchuk. Like, these are guys that can punish you. I don't know if Tata Martino has the faith in just playing Martinez and playing Aviles, and then and one of the things that we've had issues with is, again, because of the fact that he plays Jordi Alba so high up, right? And especially
Yeah.
now that he's using Chelo high up, how many times have we had issues, especially when we turn the ball over, that we have a lot of times when we have one-on-ones against our center backs and our center backs get beat. That has happened so many times this season. So
Yeah.
to me, again, you've got really good offensive guys on Atlanta, Sava, Miranchuk, and Tiare. I think that Tata sees that and he's like, I need to make sure I have three center backs in there. Like, whether it's in this case Noah or it was Busquets
Yeah.
last time, I don't think he wants Aviles, especially with his problems with yellow cards, having to go one-on-one with somebody. Maybe he
Yeah.
gets beat and then he gets
100%.
like, I think that's kind of the main issue. So
Yeah. I mean, and to this, Quasar, I'm
Chelo
not sure
was in
exactly how you pronounce
offense.
it,
Quasar Chelo was a big part of the offense,
but
and that was
he
actually
doesn't have that. He really doesn't. He doesn't have that like that
no,
final
not that he does
quality
though.
goal scoring control.
No, he's not. But what I'm saying is this: he, especially more so game two than game one.
Yeah.
Alba, okay, you're probably like, yes, Alba's the one that goes up the most. He's part of it. But today, Chelo was a big part. It's
Yeah.
almost like we were playing with two wingers, more so in game two, where you got to remember Chelo had that pass into Alba and he almost scored it. I think Chelo was more of a winger this game than last game, but they're not in the defense. You can clearly see three. I mean, they'll play a back line of five when the buildup is slow for Atlanta, and then they get into position and they start to get in that low block. Okay, but when you're on offense, it's a clear three, and you've got those two guys really high up in this game. At least,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think this is like, we can kind of work on wrapping it up here. I think that this is the last sentence is something to remember. Previous game was all okay because Sergio Busquets allows a lot of holes to be kind of paved over, right? In soccer and with any team he plays for, because he's just one of the best, not only of his position, but just minds of the game of all time. As long as the illness, hopefully he recovers in the next 7 days, hopefully it's not nothing more severe, he will be playing on Saturday. And I think that gives Inter Miami a completely different look, a different picture, and a different outlook. And all we can say, and what we can hope, we go game to game. Look at Cincinnati versus New York City. I mean, they're going to be going to a game 3 too. It's That's part of this MLS format. That's part of, what excites people. It's you have to get best out of three, and it creates, these memorable games and moments. And Inter Miami now will have to defend their home stadium. Disappointing game today. Come out, show out, and dominate, right? Because not only are we expecting and hoping to make it out of this round, obviously, but we need to do so in dominant fashion, because our next opponent, knock on wood, we get there, is going to be difficult. Playoffs get more and more difficult as you go, and this team, needs to kind of regain and re-show that they broke the MLS points record. They won the Supporters Shield. They were dominant with and without Lionel Messi this season. They have the players to do it. If they're not in their starting 11, doesn't matter. We have a strong bench. We should be able to be controlling our games no matter the opponent, put our will into it, and control the outcome. And Saturday they have the opportunity to regain that narrative, and show why they're the best team in MLS.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we haven't mentioned, I want to make sure we do, is to give props to this Atlanta team. I mean, I think defensively they were not very good in game one, and they made the adjustments necessary, and they played really good defensively. And Inter Miami had a really tough time scoring on them tonight. They probably wouldn't have scored it if it wasn't for that error. So just kudos to them for that. But I think
water always finds its level, right? Like Guzan's saves he made in game one, like it evens out in the end, probably.
No, it does. But I also think that we have to remember, like, these are the playoffs. This is the postseason. You can't also expect, even though you've come to expect, they're the best team in MLS, you can't expect them to just, just steamroll everybody and then just go through this. There's going to be adversity, and I think that that's good that they face adversity this early on, and hopefully it makes them stronger as they have to face tougher opponents. What if they would have won this 3-0 and then 4-0, and then it's just a piece of cake, and then they go into, then they have to face Orlando or whoever comes out, for this and semis. Like, I think that a little bit of adversity is good, and I hope, to me, that this game will highlight the things that they need to improve on so that they're ready and better for the next round. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it today. I have faith in this team. I think they'll win and they'll move on to the semis. This is going to be a learning experience, and my hope is that they'll be better for it and better equipped for their next opponent.
Agreed. It could be a learning experience. There's always next game. In this situation, they have the luxury of not only the next game, but they get to host it. That's what you work all season for, is to be able to host those moments. And so, look, there'll be interesting to see kind of, what we hear after this game from the players, from the coaches, injury report. Hopefully we see Busquets back next week. Hopefully Yannick Bright, maybe it was more precautionary. Hopefully it was just, maybe he felt a little bit of a strain, a little tired, and wanted to, take care of it. And he hopefully will be available. We'll see. We'll of course be back before next Saturday to have, to talk more about the game. Obviously preview that game 3, see the fallout, see what's going to be next. But it's part of playoffs, right? This is why we watch sports. So thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments maybe what you thought of the formation, the tactics, who was your best player, who was your worst player, what would you like to see different from next game? And we'll make sure to discuss it. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Messi and Co. post game live stream reaction. I'm Ashley. That is Gian, and we will see you next time.